Good evening and welcome to tonight's AFSA live event, Atopic Dermatitis Unfiltered. I am Dr. Candice Royal. I'm a pediatrician and also an allergy specialist. I'm based in what was today a sunnier and brighter Cape Town. So thank you to all of you who are joining us from whatever platform and from wherever you are. We really appreciate your input into this interactive evening. For those of you who are new to interacting with AFSA or the Allergy Foundation of South Africa, just to give you some background, this is a platform that's designed to be an interactive space between experts in the field as well as the community. And our vision is really to create awareness around atopic disorders, to promote education thereof, and as well as to dispel disinformation, and to support each other in our journeys through our various struggles with different diseases. And I think tonight, for me, I'm just so thrilled to be here because tonight is really a culmination of that vision, because we are going to be sharing our journeys in atopic dermatitis unfiltered. Without much ado, I'm going to introduce our guests for this evening. So we've got Claudine, who is the marketing director of Tree Shake. She is an advocacy expert, not only in the medical field, but also in many other domains. And maybe, Claudine, if I can cue you in there, maybe just share a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Candice. So yes, as she said, I am marketing director of Tree Shake. I've worked in this space for quite a couple of years, but I've also been campaign director on several campaigns in the advocacy space of lions and anti-lion farming, but also in the diabetes space and with people living with autoimmune diseases. So I really enjoy marketing, but with outlook for good and seeing how we can genuinely make a difference in people's and animals' lives at the end of the day.
Thank you, Claudine. We're really so privileged to have your expertise this evening, and we look forward to hearing more about that story. Let's introduce our next guest. So we've got Werner Grunewald, who is an atopic dermatitis warrior for the past 30 years. So I think he brings to the table just an immense amount of expertise in living with this condition. Werner, maybe you just want to give us a brief shout out and summary of who you are.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Werner, and like I said, I've lived with this dreaded disease for the last 30 years. So I like to say to people that my superpower is I fight atopic dermatitis on a daily basis. So yes, I'm just your everyday guy, married with 2 children. I work in the financial sector, so yeah, that's me. And hopefully we can help someone out there to help someone else. The key is, how can I help?
Thank you, Werner. And we really, really appreciate you taking time out, but more so actually being willing to share your story with this community. I think it's going to be an invaluable evening together. We would love to keep this a really interactive space, so please feel free to post your questions into our chats. We're really going to try hard to get through loads of them, but the ones that we don't get to during the course of the live event, we will proceed to answer thereafter. And there's also a chance for you to bring your own story to this event, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Let's dive in and start with Claudine. Maybe, Claudine, you just want to explain to us what really is advocacy about, and how can it be important when we're talking about a medical condition?
Sure, Candice, that I think is one of the big questions that so many people actually share, and they go, why should I speak up? Why should I share my journey with people? Like, What does it matter, and who would listen to me? And I think there's such a big part of this, which is being in the same room with all other stakeholders. It is from the prescribers, the healthcare professionals, to the people living with the condition, or the people caring for them. If you can actually share your story, you empower somebody else to keep fighting, or to try something different, or to feel understood. And I think that that is the power of community, and where social media can also play a role in actually bringing people who may feel quite isolated together. But at the same time, it is advocating for the correct funding for some of these conditions that may not be understood, or somebody who's making the decision about funding may not actually understand the day-to-day struggles of not actually having access to the right medications that can really make such a difference. So I think that is why we are here. And at the end of the day, it's not, I always say, difference for me between activism and advocacy is activism is when you take to the streets and you almost speak in shouty capitals, where advocacy for me is not that. It is actually, at the end of the day, having a seat at the table, being heard and being understood, and then trying to map out the best way forward where everybody can actually really understand one another, and we can get a mutually beneficial outcome for whatever we are advocating for.
Well, thank you for that. And I think this is what we're trying to achieve by tonight's event, right? Get us to talk about what living with atopic dermatitis really looks like, because we're all prone to putting our best foot forward when it comes to social media. We want to put up our holidays and our glossy images of our children with their perfect outfits. The nitty-gritty of daily life, we're a little bit less keen to share. How do you think that relates to atopic dermatitis, since we're sitting in a social media platform right now?
Sure. I think that that is one of the most important things that have been emerging over the last couple of years, is the power of actually authenticity. And I like to speak about not influencers as people living with conditions, but people of influence. And I think that's a subtle difference, where very often we look at the best of everybody's lives. Like you said, very often when you're sitting alone at home and you may be feeling at your worst, and you're sitting there and you're scrolling, and you actually think, oh my word, I wish my life could be like that. And this, I think the effect, or the negative effect, especially on mental health, when people just share their best moments, mean that it's not an accurate like description of what day-to-day is like. And I think that what we've started to see emerging, not as big yet, which is why it's so important to keep on growing this, but sharing the real behind the scenes, sharing what it is actually like, so that somebody else who may be going through the same struggle feel heard and understood. And I think that it's so important. Like, I'm not saying every single day just go, oh, I can't even see the best in the situation, but being realistic and showing that like sharing that burden of disease, so that somebody can also help you carry that. And I think sometimes on that is also why closed community groups are so important, because sometimes you don't want to share it with the greater people out there, but you just want to feel understood by somebody who is going through a similar thing as you. And maybe they have some advice that your family members may not have in that situation, because they may have gone through something.
I so resonate with what you've just said. I obviously sit with parents of children who have atopic dermatitis and hear their stories, and it's so heartbreaking how alone they feel, because I've got a baby, I'm supposed to be in this really super happy space, and I'm struggling, and sometimes we just need to hear that you're not alone, right? And everybody's story is different. And I think we can take a lot from just sharing and being real and presenting our highs as well as our lows. Let's give it a balanced image of atopic dermatitis. Claudine, you and I have already spoke about what work you've done around in the diabetes space. Maybe you want to just share with the audience how you approach that, because we've got really good studies that compare food allergy with diabetes, and that the burden is actually very similar. And I believe that atopic dermatitis can also fall in line with that. Would you like to?
Absolutely. And that is, I think, with some of the autoimmune diseases, it's such a wide category. And I think that often people think that there is, or there's also the stigma around it. And I think that it is a lot about breaking the stigma of any of the misinformation that is out there, whether it is everything is lifestyle and it is choices, or, there are so many pieces of misinformation out there, that the accurate representation is so important, and showing that you can still live a full life even if you have a condition or a medical condition like this. But I also think that it highlights the importance of, in diabetes we call it the type F, which is your friends and family, and it is understanding, like you said, often it is a parent who has a child actually struggling with atopic dermatitis. You as a parent you're the first advocate for your child, because you have to take them to the doctor. You have to actually work with them, and you get to advocate and actually say, listen, we need access to this medication, or we need to do that. And I think that very often there are similarities, or you can also think of what they've achieved, how they have gone through a PMB, or how they have worked with clinical advocates to actually get funding for certain of the technologies or the new medications out there. So I think that sometimes there are possibilities for cross collaboration within this space, and that we can really learn from one another.
Thank you. It's just so wonderful to have your expertise in this space. Let's chat to Werner, who's really our key storyteller in being an AD sufferer for so many years. Why don't you share with us your journey, Werner? How did it all start for you?
Yeah, like I said in my intro before, AD has started for me. And as I read the comments of people on the posts, many years ago, I think, 20, 30 years ago, even, people didn't understand what AD was. They, with groups like Cordines and the Allergy Foundation, over the years, we've come to understand, that there is treatment for it. But, I honestly think we're still a while away. For me, as a kid, 9, 10 years old, it starts on your hands, and your hands starts peeling. And the problem with hands, and in my case with feet also, is it is something that you use daily. So as silly as that sound, you get to a point where you can't hold a pen, or you can't wear a specific shoe, or socks is an irritation, and moist is a irritation, and hand sanitizers. And so it's difficult to say to someone that the eczema is better if your hands are dirty. And the problem is there's a fine balance between dirty or sweaty and trying to control it, by saying that some ointments and over-the-counter types of ointments, you can apply them on your hands, but you need to work with those hands. So it becomes a challenge, and over the years, it has went to different places, on my scalp specifically, down my back, even recently around my genital areas. So it's a challenge, your back, you sit on a chair in the day. I mean, you work, as a grown man, you sweat, you do sport, so it's a challenge. You kind of, and I think the challenge comes in with the different types of treatments that there are. You know, a lot of doctors 20, 30 years ago would just throw cortisone at the problem. With cortisone comes other problems, excessive weight gain, for instance, all sorts of just, yeah, biological problems. And, you know, a cortisone cream can only get you so far. You cannot apply it in your hair, for instance. Like I said, on your hands, because you need to work with your hands. So it's difficult to keep your skin moist, if that makes sense, during the day. So yeah, that's my story of the struggle as it is. And there's no, I don't think there's any quick fix. You know, it's you learn more as you go along every day. I think that's the challenge more.
Yeah, I always say to my patients, eczema is a journey, and there are highs and lows, but there, like you say, there's no quick fix. And that's what makes us feel quite desperate, really, is that it's about managing, and really that can be tricky, and there are going to be flares. Can you maybe describe to us how that's impacted you in terms of your quality of life, your sleep, your interaction with other people?
Yeah, I've told the guys on the group before that, you know, I've only recently learned about this group per se, or these Facebook pages. So, you know, over the last 20, 30 years, I actually have achieved national colors in tempo bowling. So I'm a very big sports fanatic in general. I've played overseas. Most recently, you know, around the COVID time, you know, we actually traveled to Egypt. Now, with Egypt comes all sorts of other problems. You know, with COVID, you wear masks and you sanitize the whole time. And, you know, in Egypt, the temperatures rise well over 40 degrees. So there's just a bunch of things that goes wrong with a normal AD sufferer, you know. So it becomes a challenge. And being a sports person, you know, I think a lot of people will realize that you don't just arrive there. You know, there's a lot of planning and practice and gym sessions and physio and thousands of things that goes on to get there. So it's a challenge, you know. In a gym, it's a challenge. In the sports field, it's a challenge. Um, like I said, with the hands, you know, in general, it's a challenge, and it is a problem. Um, you know, as I read what people are posting, I'm just, you know, in my mind, I realize that over the years, you certain seasons is a problem. I mean, that's where allergies come in. Um, I stay in Pretoria, and up in Gauteng, you know, we all know our winters is exceptionally dry. So as the winter progresses, even as we speak now, your skin becomes unbearable because it wants the moist air. And then I hear the guys that's staying in Durban or close to the coast say, you know, they find that the humidity or the humid air is also not necessarily the answer. So I guess each person to its own, you know, I think that's what makes AD such a challenge, that I don't think there's one quick fix for everyone. You know, we can share ideas and ways to wash ourselves, ways to moist ourselves, ways to take care of ourselves. And you kind of have to, you know, you get to a point where you need to turn to something natural, or, you know, you can only use so much of biologics and all sorts of terrible stuff that you pump your body full. So yeah, that It's a whole mouthful.
No, and thank you for that. It's so important that we hear. This is why we invited you here. We hear both the good, that there is good eczema treatment out there, but also the struggles that maybe sometimes it doesn't work for you and you need to look for something else. Claudine, how do you think advocacy can help the rest of the world understand the burden of disease for people who suffer from atopic dermatitis?
I think that is something that has been underreported in a lot of different disease conditions, where people just look at, okay, but you just struggle with your skin, and they don't ever look at the mental health aspect of that, or the impact on your work. Like Werner said earlier, if it is your hands and you have to actually you actually have to wash your hands the entire time, or if you're in the medical profession and you have eczema on your hands, my sister is one of those. She actually can't sanitize or wear the types of gloves that you need to in theater. And you like, I don't think people always understand the amount of extra care that that is there. So at the end of the day, it is when you start sharing what it is like, the need for treatments that can actually improve quality of life overall gets highlighted. And I think that is also something where support groups and advocacy work can come in. And we also want to highlight and say, if you are a person who is on private healthcare on the top fund, and you actually have access to certain other medications that somebody maybe in the public sector does not have, you can actually advocate from your own story, and you mustn't disregard what you are going through at that moment. And that is why representation is so key. And in any advocacy group, or in any campaign that you run, because people bring different perspectives and they also bring a balanced view. And you can actually share, okay, if we look at what is happening in different conditions within the South African medical space, you can learn from one another, or you can look at what maybe a country similar to us have gone through in order to actually get funding or access for something. And I think that it is so important bridging that gap, because often people have this misperception that you are the bad guys and we are struggling, instead of how can we all work holistically together to find a better outcome. And that's why I think advocacy is so important, and healthcare professionals standing up and helping to fight for their patients, because very often it is the motivation to the medical aid providers that actually get them access to funding, because the medical professional actually took the time out to help them access something that they may not have previously been able to access. So it is the importance of everybody standing together and coming from a little bit of a different background, different outcome, and seeing how we can really work together in order to drive this forward.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think me coming from a healthcare professional viewpoint, I think in our conversations as we've been building up to this event, what we really recognize is we need to understand, what do people with atopic dermatitis in South Africa need, and how can we achieve fulfilling those requirements. And I think that's why this event was just so exciting for all of us, because we're really hoping that the audience is going to tell us, what do you need as an atopic dermatitis sufferer or parent or family member or friend? How can we together as a community help each other? What's your perspective on that, Claudine?
So I think that was a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to present the advocacy workshop, and we specifically made the capital letter AD advocacy. So it is specifically advocating for people living with AD. And in that workshop, we had people like Werner. That's actually where we met for the first time. And he was able to share his story, and we held small groups, and they could actually come together and say, what do you think we should advocate for first? What do you think the biggest need is? And actually, some of the things that came out of there surprised me, because I didn't think of the health, or that, like, the mental health aspect and understanding the burden of disease as being one of the top things. And I know that very often people say, my child gets bullied, like, what do I do in this situation? How do I help her? Because, like, how can I help her feel understood in this space that, like, other children don't understand what she's going through at the moment? And I think that is a big part of the work that we're trying to do, is helping understand what support looks like holistically, and understanding that care for AD is not just cortisone, or not just one skin ointment. It can be different for different people, and understanding that there may be a mental health aspect to look at, and the opportunity to share stories and really come together in order to help feel understood, and being in a room where you can actually breathe out and go, like, oh, word, I don't have to carry this alone. And we sometimes see that when we bring like, we do community in-person walks very often in the diabetes space, and people coming together, and everybody injects before they eat, and they're like, oh my word, it's so good that I, like, feel normal. Like, you like me
Well
too.
done, well done.
And that type of thing, of just that, those moments are so special. And I think that is also the importance of this, is sharing stories, because the amount of people just commenting on things, going, yeah, but oh my word, me too. I think that really helps alleviate that burden, and not feeling completely alone.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that input. We're going to quickly jump to some questions. And I'm going to start with one that I think is probably mostly directed at me, but maybe I'm incorrect, and you two are welcome to put in your thoughts too. So we've got a comment for one of our YouTube audience, Salome, who says, what can I use for my 1 year, 6 month son who has eczema? I've been trying some products I get from the pharmacies, but no luck. Please help. So I think the reason why I want to steal that question is because I just firstly want to just give some education around what is eczema. Actually, we've had this long discussion about what a terrible burden it can be and what we need to do in this space, but what are we actually even talking about? So eczema is, unfortunately, I've realized, mostly chronic inflammatory condition of the skin. And the way we like to explain it is, if you think of your skin as being your barrier against the outside environment, you can think of it as like your brick wall. So you've got your skin cells, which are like your little bricks, and you've got important cement that sort of holds everything together. And then importantly, you need to have this plaster, this sort of oily layer that our skin is supposed to have, that really seals the deal, so to speak. And when you've got eczema, you're missing some of those supporting structures, and you're definitely missing that good oily layer. So it's really hard to keep, as Sarita Kannenberg, another important member of our group, would say, it's hard to keep the bad stuff out and the good stuff in. So your moisture, your natural moisture in your skin is very quickly lost into the environment. And it's very easy for anything irritating to get into your skin and make it feel uncomfortable, make it itch. And then unfortunately you scratch and you destroy that skin barrier even more. So the real reason why I wanted to say that all is because what our goal of therapy with atopic dermatitis is to restore the skin barrier, so to put the moisture back, put the cement back, put the oil back onto your skin, so that you restore your skin to be a good barrier again. And the way to do that is, number one, by putting on lots and lots of emollient, and by emollient I mean moisturizer. But there's a bit of a misconception around moisturizers, in that A lot of things that are promoted as good for eczema are probably fine for normal skins, but not oily enough for somebody who has eczema. So you want to find the moisturizer that you can put on all the time, loads and loads of times a day, and that actually keeps your skin feeling oily, because that's fixing the skin barrier. At times when you've got eczema, you do need to use an anti-inflammatory, and we've been mentioning corticosteroids. Those are the typical things that we think about as controlling the inflammation of eczema. And remember, eczema is one of those conditions where it's itchy beyond the rash. So even normal skin can be itchy, and I'm sure Werner can attribute to that. So you've got to really deal with the inflammation, but also the key is lots and lots of moisturizer. And my personal opinion is you don't need the fanciest product out there. You need the one that's got lots of oil and that you are going to feel happy to lather on that child over and over again to keep the skin moist. Let's look at some other questions. Okay, there's a question from Facebook from Karen, who says her daughter has been suffering from eczema for 20 years. She's currently on methotrexate. So methotrexate is an immunosuppressant that it can be used as part of treatment for refractory eczema. But she regularly also uses cortisones, and the medical professionals are of the opinion that she now needs to move to a biologic by the name of Dupixent, which is dupilumab. This is a new biologic. So a biologic is kind of like a sniper gun when you're targeting the inflammation of the skin. But it's extremely expensive. It's kind of new in our country, and we're really struggling to get medical aids to approve it. Claudine, can you maybe speak to that? What about biologics when we've got really refractory eczema? We've got people in need of these, and we just can't get medical aids to pay.
Sure. This is one that I want to say is such a big topic. And I think that there are parts that we need to understand that medical aid providers really are trying quite hard to open up access to a lot of medications that we need. However, when medications are of such a high cost, it actually also puts a burden on the fund to actually be able to provide the most care for every single one of the people who actually need something at the end of the day. So this is where I think the healthcare professionals really need to step in to motivate why they need to try this new biologic. And at the same time, it is, we have advances in medical technology happening every single day. And I think that is also the blessing of this, saying 20, 30 years ago, we only had, for example, corticosteroids that we would use. But as there are advances in the medical field, we have opportunities, or we have a wider range of potential medications that could be helpful. But that discussion is something that we need to go to a fund with. And this is also where advocacy is such a big part of this, because you need to go and advocate for, why do I need something that is of that cost, and how the second that more people start using it, it can also become mainstream. It is like everything. The first iPhone was almost way too expensive to afford, but the second that you can actually get it to mainstream, there may be other players starting to enter the market, and you have that competition, and it may become more affordable going forward. The problem with something like a biologic or a JAK category is that it's such an advanced medicine that there isn't any true generics actually available for those, because it's such an advanced medication. So I think the best there is actually work with your doctor, understand why it is, and then help them motivate to the fund, and make sure that like that you get heard. If you're not getting heard and you really, really need that, join one of the advocacy groups. Also hear whether they can help advocate on your behalf, because if you are just struggling alone and you go through, but I've written this motivation and you've done this, and it can actually come to a point that you can become despondent. And if you actually reach out to an organization that have an advocacy group, they can maybe help you, just help carry that burden also of that while you negotiate and actually get funding for the medication that you need.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Corin, sorry, I just want to say on a side point that, you know, myself has been one of the very first patients that went on to this Dupixent. And I'm talking 2 years ago already. And it really, really does work. Yes, there is side effects and it is very expensive. And that's the biggest part of my crisis at the moment. But I agree with Cordine. You know, in my case, I have a excellent dermatologist that is fighting that fight behind the scenes, sending the photos, writing the medical reports. You know, some of these pharma corporations has support groups and people that fight for you behind the scene. All medication, cortisones, all of them have side effects. So I don't think you must necessarily just look at the side effects. In some people, the side effects is none. In my specific case, you know, the side effects of that, it makes my eyes a bit scratchy. As silly as that sound, you know, it's a high feverish feel that it gives me. But what it does in the long run, for your skin and, you know, your body in general, I don't know, I'm not a biological expert, but, you know, your body in general, it targets this specific problem that Dr. Candice has explained. You know, it targets that bricks that's being broken down, and that I suppose is the key. So don't get despondent. Just keep motivating your daughter.
And join one of our support groups. That's what
Yes.
AFSA really wants to encourage. Visit the Facebook page. You can get involved. These are closed groups that are supervised by medical professionals. So bring your story to the space. I think we're going to break quickly for a short video where we're going to hear some more stories and learn more about advocacy. But thank you. I think this has been an amazing evening already.
Every new day brings new opportunities. But if our skin has a problem, so do we. Rough, tensed. If my skin is stressed, how could I relax? No one sees the real me behind my pimples. How I wish I could stop the itching and help her sleep. Problems with our skin make us lose confidence in who we are and how we take on life. Sad, insecure, embarrassed, self-conscious, shy, angry, insecure, lonely. At Eucerin, we want to make a change. With over 100 years of skin science, signature ingredients, and products that work. Clinically proven. However, there's more to it than skin improvement. We believe in the life-changing power of dermatological skincare. We believe if your skin problem is solved and your skin feels better, you feel better. To us, that's much more than skincare.
I didn't want to give up. I was strong enough to, but eventually I had to give up. My body was sore. I couldn't continue anymore. My skin disease is Iriopsia areata. My whole skin was full of sores. My feet were swollen, my whole body. This part was like this, big. I would like to work, but I can't. I'm too scared.
With eczema, it's one of those conditions where like it's quite unpredictable, you know. So now it's more like, okay, fine. You sort of, you tell yourself that you're managing it, but you don't know when it comes back, how strong it will come back. I don't want eczema to actually stop me from living my life, basically, because it's always going to be there, regardless.
I can manage it by not looking at my wounds and putting moisturizer.
If we could get, like more assistance from medical aid, because it's something that you live with every day. You don't know when it will end.
I've got to be more aware with where he is, who he's with, because he has such a long list of allergens, environmental allergens as well. Things like play dates, are there cats? How many cats are there? Is there a sandpit that really aggravates his skin if he plays in sand?
I just itch. I try not to, but it's just so itchy. I try not to.
Scratch.
Try not to scratch.
Atopic dermatitis is one of those visual conditions. So to some extent you can hide the inflammation, you can hide the rashes, you can hide all of them under clothing. People can't necessarily see the physical flare-up. The pain is still there. The emotional turmoil is still there. It consumes your entire life, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Advocacy is crucial for atopic eczema because it raises awareness, encourages funders to prioritize the condition, drives research, and improves patient care. Atopic eczema is a chronic inflammatory skin condition affecting millions globally, but is often under-recognized and misunderstood. Advocacy helps to shine the spotlight on the condition, ensuring that it receives the attention it deserves from healthcare, policymakers, and the public. Effective advocacy can lead to increased funding for research, better treatment options, and the development of comprehensive care guidelines. By sharing personal stories, patients can humanize the condition, helping to break down stigma and dispel myths. This in turn fosters a more supportive environment for those affected and encourages early diagnosis and treatment. Professionals can get involved in advocacy by collaborating with patient organizations, contributing to public awareness campaigns, and educating both patients and their families. They can also advocate within their institutions for better resources and support system for managing atopic eczema. Patients and their families can encourage an advocacy by participating in awareness campaigns, supporting research initiatives, and using social media to share their experience. By working together, both patients and professionals can ensure that atopic eczema receives the attention and resources needed to improve the quality of life of those affected.
Go.
So let's move on to hearing a bit more about Werner's story. So maybe you want to explain to us a little bit more about the physical discomfort you've experienced in your journey with eczema.
Yeah, look, I've written a few specifics here on the page. I think what a challenge is, like I've read a lot of people are saying, as a child, you can only cover up so much, so I think the emotional side of how people treat you or treat your children or You know, the world is a cruel place. So, you know, people look at someone with eczema in the face or on their hands or on their arms, and you know, they think that there is something wrong with you. You know, if they touch you or come close to you, uh they might contract it in some way. You know, you'll walk in a store and someone will grab their child just so that they don't brush up against you, as silly as that sounds. So, you know, you want to scream to the world and say that um I'm not gonna infect everyone. You know, it's not like measles or, you know, that. I think the emotional side of it and the physical side, you know, um in my case and in a lot of cases, the sores from over time keeping on scratching, applying ointment, scratching again, you know, going through the winter months, um, you know, wearing white clothes some days is impossible because there's blood everywhere, as silly as that sounds. So in my case, you know, those sores from keeping on scratching and keeping on treating, eventually those sores don't heal as nicely. And it becomes sore, you know, to a point where you can't sit anymore, you can't lie down, um so physically it's a very sore disease, call it that, to handle. So there again, there's treatments on the market. You know, through the COVID times, I've contracted a bout of shingles, and you know, the doctors at that stage prescribed pain slash um, medication that helps with depression also, which is not very expensive, you know, and that does help. So it's something that you drink at night and you sleep, and you know the pain is bearable. It's not a sleep tablet; it's a calming tablet, if that makes sense. And in a lot of cases, you know, like I've said to you, it helps to be on support groups and speak to people about it and speak to your doctor about it and see if there's not a natural way that you can help treat this. I mean, something silly like just a normal over the counter moisturizing cream isn't necessarily the answer. I'm not saying you have to go buy a 500 rand bottle of moisturizing cream, but in some cases, like in my own, you know, bathing, instead of in a baby oil, use a liquid paraffin. It sounds silly, but it's something you can buy at any store, and it works a charm. I mean, it's the same type of consistency like a baby oil. It does the same thing. It just moisturizes the skin, but it seems to do it more naturally, and it seems to go into the skin, if that makes sense in layman's terms, instead of just lying on top of the skin.
And I think that the point you make is good, in that you need to get advice from a healthcare professional that's experienced in dealing with eczema and that can give you simple but good advice to help you choose the correct products, help you manage your skin well, without necessarily directing you to the very expensive treatments. Because really with eczema, I see a comment, are we saying that there's no treatment for eczema? No, we're not saying that at all. There's really great treatment for eczema, and in the vast majority, simple things work. We're obviously engaging with more extreme cases to show the bad side of eczema, but there is good treatment, and get your healthcare professional on your side, get your family on your side, get your friends on your side, join a support group. Don't be alone in this journey. So having said that, Claudine, who should we be reaching out? Who should be helping us in our mission for advocacy for AD?
So I would say you have come to the right place. And I think AFSA really has been playing such an incredible role, bringing healthcare professionals also like yourself, and Dr. Surieta and Prof. Mike all together, who are passionate about helping their patients, also helping advocates speak up for themselves. A term that we always use is, we don't want to be a voice for the voiceless. We want to pass the mic so that they can speak for themselves. And I think that is really at the heart of what we are trying to do here. It is, sometimes you can go on other Facebook groups that really spread misinformation, or you ask a question and everybody answers. And I think that that's also the importance of the closed Facebook group that you shared earlier, is the AFSA support group is also monitored by a medical professional who can who can actually just put some eyes on that and go, oh no, I think actually you should go here, or this is a simple fix that you can try. But that's also, when you share your story, there is also somebody making sure that you have high quality, correct information out there. And I think that's also a big part of education. And in a world with over communication, and like Dr. Google can tell you absolutely everything, I think that knowing where to find the right information that is high quality and having people to support you along the journey is, come to a place like AFSA. They can guide you in the right direction, and they can go, you struggle with this. This is the right person to speak to, or they can just nudge you in the right direction. But at the same time, it is advocacy groups. It is also a lot of the time, or most of the time, volunteer-based, and people give up their time to help you actually along this journey. And I think that that mustn't be discounted. And I think that that is a big part of knowing who to turn to. Come here, you've come to the right place. These are the people who will help you and who will give you high quality information that can hopefully really make a tangible difference along your journey.
Now, thank you for that. And just as a reminder, you can visit the website of the Allergy Foundation at www.allergyfoundation.co.za. There's a wealth of information there. There's newsletters, there's posts, there's high quality information, factual information that you can dive into and engage with, as well as joining any of our social media platforms. Let's go to some more questions. I'm just going to have a quick read. There's so many comments coming through. A lot of comment about the expense of eczema treatment, and I think that's something that's very close to this advocacy group's heart, and something that we're really trying to look at how we can address this. And so if you want to join that fight, please do. So maybe this is a question I can direct to Werner. It's a Facebook comment from Jamie Lee Fontaine. My 10-year-old daughter has atopic eczema, and I hate the fact that my daughter gets bullied and questioned by so many children at school. Is there no way that we can get her meds covered by medical aid? I hate it that she has to wear long sleeves because she's shy of her arms. So I think we've addressed that aspect about trying to manage cost and funders provision thereof. But maybe just a chat about how would you advise a mother to manage her child's emotional impact of eczema?
From my side, I would just say, it brings a tear to my eye, because I honestly understand what this mother is going through. And, as a child being there, and as a parent with having kids, and yes, my daughter also struggles with the same at the moment. So maybe it's hereditary, I don't know. I would suggest, firstly, I'm not sure if this mom is necessarily by a good dermatologist. I'm definitely not uh, talking on behalf of any dermatologist, but I can categorically say to you there is excellent dermatologists out there, and also people that really care. So in a lot of cases, I would suggest speak with the dermatologist, see if she cannot motivate maybe for more intensive medication for your daughter. And simple things, try simple things at home. Like I said, with me, education is the key. Yes, I'm a man, but I love a bath, so, bath and bubbles to hear, I thought was the best thing ever. Till the dermatologist said to me, that's the worst thing. You don't want funny soaps and, bubble baths and your normal over-the-counter hair wash and face wash and body wash. A lot of those things is designed to clean the skin and, yes, to dry out the skin more. Because in a lot of cases, you'll read it says for oily skin or for oily hair. And your daughter and myself, we don't have oily skin or oily hair. That's where the problem is. So just search around. You get excellent body washes, hair washes, face washes, that is better suited for dry skin type of thing. Look at that. Instead of having bubble bath, put a cup of or a small cup of jik in your bath water. It sounds silly, but it's much cheaper and it does the same thing. Like I said before, a small tot of liquid paraffin in the bath water in the winter when the kid's skin is extra dry. You just need to get that skin moisturized. And in her case, you obviously, it's difficult for kids to wear sleeves and closed up completely. So it is a challenge, but try and get that skin as moisturized as possible, and the dry flakiness will in time disappear. And just keep her motivated. That's all I can say. I definitely have you in my prayers every night.
Thank you for that, Werner. And I'm just going through the comments and so feeling quite saddened by how many people are struggling with uncontrolled eczema, and really that as a healthcare professional, that we should not accept that. So if you aren't winning with the treatment that your child or you yourself are using, you really need to go back to the drawing board and look at other things. And the one thing I must just mention is, as I keep saying, sometimes simple things work, and wet wrapping is an amazing, effective, simple, cheap treatment for eczema that works. So look into that. I know we've got posts about that on the AFSA site. It's a great, weapon in your armamentarium if you're dealing with eczema. I think we actually have run out of time, and I quickly need to tell you about a very exciting competition that we are running, where we would like you to share your eczema journey, and in doing so you stand a chance of winning one of 3 cash prizes. I think the team is putting up a slide about that, and you can scan your QR code and then share with us your story. I think we've realized how important that is in helping us navigate managing eczema in our community. We also have a questionnaire that we'd really appreciate you interacting with, to give us more information about how people who are living with eczema experience their symptoms and the impact of quality of life. So please also engage with that. It's only by learning more from yourselves that we as a community can move forward in managing atopic dermatitis. Thank you once again to our sponsors. I think this has been an invaluable evening, and we're so thankful that there are people out there who are ready to put their resources into creating such events. I can't thank you enough to our guests, Claudine and Werner, for really bringing such insight and such a heartfelt a call to action for all of us. I think it's just been fantastic, and we really look forward to engaging with you all as part of the AFSA community. If you posted a question and we didn't get around to answering it, I'm really sorry about that, but we will get back to you, so watch your feeds. And without any further ado, we look forward to celebrating World Atopic Dermatitis Day on the 14th of September. And thank you again for being a part of this event, and please feel free to share it widely. Thanks very much.